It was to be a joy flight over the vineyards. Everything was perfect until a balloon tried to land just north of Cessnock. According to locals, the balloon owned by Balloon Flights Australia, a Sydney-based company, has landed in the area several times before, and this landing should have been routine. Losing height, the balloon came into land here in this paddock. There were no signs of panic when the pilot of 12 years' experience ordered his passengers to jump for safety. 4 were released without incident. However, the pilot and a remaining woman passenger stayed on board. Suddenly, the balloon gained height and clipped the power lines. A survivor told police he saw the pilot hanging from the side of the basket, trying to control the balloon as it approached the 11,000-volt power lines.
He saw the pilot hanging on and he could see what appeared to be sparks or flames coming from one of his hands that he was hanging on to.
The 45-year-old Sydney pilot, David Leslie Bowers, was killed instantly and thrown to the ground, while horrified eyewitnesses watched as the balloon continued to rise, with one passenger still on board.
I saw this figure wearing a red coat, jacket, standing and peering over the gondola, and people yelling out, "Jump, jump!" And it went up high and high, and when the poor person jumped, I mean, I have no idea of heights, but I guessed 80 to 100 feet, and my feeling was that the person couldn't survive such a jump.
The 29-year-old Sydney woman died later in Cessnock Hospital. Meanwhile, the balloon had blown 2 kilometres into the scrub, and investigators were forced to cut their way in to study the wreckage. The past 2 months have been disastrous for ballooning, with 13 dead in Alice Springs, and only last week 2 were killed at Mudgee. Today, an expert underlined the risks in the sport.
There's a fine line between having an accident and not having an accident in any vehicle. And I think you must say, especially in aviation, it's any form of aviation is bound to have an accident.
The Fire Brigade has warned of extreme care following a spate of outbreaks in the area today. Crews are still battling flames at Medowie, Cessnock and Bloomfield Colliery near Maitland. Firemen have also been busy at Araring and in the Martinsville area. Earlier today, Belmont residents feared for their homes with fires skirting buildings, and firemen were forced to backburn the area. No property was damaged, but experts warn of greater problems as the season continues. Peter Ryan, NBN News. Newcastle hoteliers had their first look at the new pub cards. They were told the system is the best ID available for legal drinkers and it's virtually tamper-proof. Tracy, Stephen and Tanya became the first young Newcastle drinkers to use the card. They agree the system avoids embarrassing and sometimes awkward situations.
Yeah, well, I don't actually look 18 and it bugs you seeing your 16, 17-year-old friends walking in and you get pulled up and they don't.
To receive a pub card, the young customer presents a copy of a birth certificate, a declaration from his or her parents and a passport photo before filling out a form. If the publican is satisfied with the details, they'll receive a card. Newcastle Police Licensing Officer Sergeant Bob Sutton says other forms of ID will still be acceptable.
Well, it's certainly an added safeguard. We don't see it as replacing other forms of identification. In fact, we've been instructed to request and demand other evidence until the card establishes itself as being correctly issued and correctly used.
The meeting confronted a more serious issue facing hotels, one that won't be receiving much publicity. It's a campaign against illegal drug use. Publicans will be given a list of signs to look for in both traffickers and users, but understandably, arrangements with the local drug squad will be low-key.
Do you think some publicans here might be afraid of the risk of, dobbing in a druggie?
That is a problem. And there has been incidences in Sydney where people have had attacks on their hotels by apparently people that have been kicked out for selling drugs. And hopefully it won't happen in Newcastle. But when Hotel is reporting sellers of drugs in hotels, they just have to be careful about who they report to.
The Australasian Weller Service Excellence Award is the first of its kind in the world. It was launched earlier this year when customers were asked to nominate a salon and stylist who consistently gave top service. 21-year-old Sandra Reynolds was chosen by a regular Cardiff customer, and last night she heard she'd scooped the New South Wales title.
We just try and make everyone happy and please everyone. Everyone's so close in here, you know. Everyone gets on so well.
Sandra's top-class treatment, spanning 6 years with Cut and Dried, was chosen by a mystery judge posing as a customer, who gave her the nod over 1,200 other salons. Later this month, Sandra will find out whether she wins the Australasian title, with a trip to London and a course at the Vidal Sassoon Academy as the coveted prize.
The study is effectively the blueprint for the city's development in the business district. It's hoped the plan, designed in cooperation with local architects, the university and city authorities, will help maintain views of landmarks that typify Newcastle and could be spoiled by development. The study took in concerns over pedestrian access, building heights and street frontages. Consultant to the project, Professor Barry Maitland, says the study sought to reach a balance.
And what we've done is to divide the city centre up into 4 major precincts, townscape precincts, and within each one of those we've described some of the things that are most important. In the East End, for example, the Eastern Precinct, the main city core as it historically developed, the topography, the landform, the major landmark of Christchurch Cathedral, the waterfront, and the existing character of the shopping and office precincts all have special characteristics which it's important to develop and to build on.
The study will go on display for 4 weeks at the City Council Chambers, the Regional Museum, the Central Reference Library, and will be open for public comment.
On a shoestring budget, Newcastle Overseas Aid Limited has managed to amass 5 tonnes of the state's surplus medical supplies. This vast array is destined for Hai Phong, a seaport in the north of Vietnam.
All of the material you see spread throughout the warehouse here will be loaded on board the ship and be freighted back to Hai Phong as a gift from the people of Newcastle.
The supplies are due to be shipped out mid-November aboard a Vietnamese vessel. Today, a delegation led by the Vietnamese ambassador to Australia predicted the gift will upgrade a badly depleted medical system.
Our country was very seriously destroyed during the war, and especially in the areas of hospitals and schools. So I think that this shipment of hospital facilities and medical equipment are very useful for our people.
They just don't have this type of equipment available to them, nor do they have the resources to purchase it.
Today's visit could well herald further aid and trade links between Newcastle and Vietnam. Moves are afoot to establish a branch of the trade office of the city of Hai Phong in Newcastle. And speculation too that Newcastle may add another member to its growing family of sister cities. Talks this morning between the Lord Mayor and the Vietnamese delegation looked at a possible link between Newcastle and the Vietnamese city of Hai Phong.
Once the photo sessions were out of the way, it was down to business for the riders in the Commonwealth Bank Cycle Classic. The field left Pelican Beach Resort at Coffs Harbour this morning for stage 6 of the ride, 163 kilometres to Port Macquarie. A strong tailwind and determined attacking by riders saw the field finish half an hour ahead of schedule. East German's Jan Schur won the race and the yellow jersey by half a wheel from Australian Barney St George, with Eric Venemer of Holland third. But today's placing still sees Vladimir Kolushko leading the Cycle Classic, 11 seconds ahead of Aaron Lauder of New Zealand, with Australia's Andrew Logan in third place. In the teams' point score, Australia has managed to hang on to its lead, thanks to Barney St George and Matthew Bazzano, who were in the first bunch across the line.
The Brisbane-bound Sunliner coach collided head-on with the semi-trailer about 4 a.m. Rescue workers were still treating injured passengers on the scene 3 hours later. 19 of the passengers were pronounced dead at the scene. 3 more have since died, and doctors hold fears for several more survivors listed in a critical condition. Ambulance crews ferried the less seriously injured passengers to Grafton and Macquarie hospitals. The worst hurt are at Lismore Base Hospital. It's believed that about 20 passengers boarded the bus at Grafton, among them a group booking of 10, many from the same family. At this stage, it's not known how many of those passengers were residents of Gosford. Survivors say they heard a sound like a bomb going off before regaining consciousness, either around the wreckage or still trapped inside. Sydney survivor Judith Mapston had to crawl over bodies to escape the wreck.
I was just lucky, very, very lucky, and I prayed when I got out of that hole.
There were 46 people on the Sunliner Express when it slammed head-on into a southbound semi-trailer, rolling twice before coming to rest. 19 passengers died at the scene, 3 more died in hospital. About 20 passengers are still hospitalised, mostly at Maclean and Grafton. The more serious cases are at Lismore Base Hospital. Graham Wilson of Sydney was another of the lucky ones.
It was a devastating scene. They'd already when I just sort of come to where I was, there was quite a few bodies covered, and they were bringing out bodies, and they was putting them in one section and the injured in another section, and only about 5 or 6 people that actually walked away from it, including myself.
The most tragic news is that one man has lost 7 members of his family. Cole Ormisher, 49, an advertising executive from Gosford, has lost his wife and 2 teenage children. His brother, sister-in-law and their 2 children are also dead.
This morning, Hunter Region teachers anxiously phoned a special hotline set up by the Teachers Federation.
Trade-offs required by the Minister include an additional 1.5 hours a day at school for secondary teachers, an additional hour a day at school for primary teachers.
The verdict from local teachers is that Dr Metherell has dealt them his most savage blow yet.
We're expecting a bad package. We're expecting to lose some conditions, but we didn't think it would be anywhere near as bad as it is. It's the biggest slap in the face we've ever had.
Hunter Region teachers were to strike yesterday, but they deferred their plans when Dr Metherell promised to release details of a new salary package. With that package now revealed, strike action seems almost certain.
I think our strike will go ahead next week. It was deferred while we looked at the package, but I think it probably will go ahead next week now, just as a sign of our disgust.
Hunter delegates will attend tomorrow's State Council meeting of the Teachers Federation. That meeting is expected to endorse the deferred strike and also consider a stepped-up industrial campaign. Leslie Robinson, NBN News.
The former English stayer outclassed last Saturday's Herbert Power handicap field, a race run over the Caulfield Cup course. New Zealand 4-year-old The Phantom has been set for the Cup, and his 3 Melbourne starts have been full of merit, his last in the Caulfield Stakes a beauty. Our tipster Gary Harley feels that Apollo Run is not without a chance, despite being comprehensively beaten by Nay Rizzy last start. So for the Caulfield Cup trifecta, to 12 and 4, Nay Rizzy from the Phantom and Apollo Run. For the daily double at Caulfield, try Stay Afloat in the first leg and don't play the Queenslander in the second leg. Having a look at Gary's selections for the Randwick meeting, he likes Impresetto in the first leg of the daily double and Quicksilver Cindy in the second leg. And for your trifecta, 8, 2 and 3, Impresetto to beat Rajamar and Algonquin Club. For the meeting at Broadmeadow tomorrow, the numbers of 2 and 3 for the daily double, Sustained Command and Famous Do should win. And for your trifecta, 3, 2 and 4, Famous Do from Apollo Ruler and His Way. Newcastle Harness Racing Club officials are predicting a crowd of 10,000 at tomorrow night's opening of the new $2.5 million International Paceway. The feature race, the $10,000 Foster's Pace, has attracted an outstanding field of pacers. For the trifecta at the International Paceway, the numbers you need to get up are 4, 8 and 3, TT Lodge from National Image and Roliella, and for the daily double, try Sapling Ship in the first leg and TT Lodge in the second. And we wish the Newcastle Trotting Club all the best for their big night. A large crowd was at the Belmont 16-foot Skiff Club to acknowledge the performances of Lake Macquarie sportspeople and administrators. Mayor Ivan Welsh made a special presentation for his services to sport to weightlifter and Commonwealth Games gold medalist Greg Hayman. Super swimming coach Laurie Lawrence made the arduous bus journey from Brisbane to Newcastle to be the guest speaker, and he stunned the crowd with his singing talents. But focus was turned to the first award, the Junior Sports Person of the Year, and from 10 nominees, it was left to Greg Hayman to announce the winner.
And the winner is William O'Neill.
Terry Harrigan, Vicky O'Brien, Ray Nunn, Jim Pembroke and Jim Pritchard were nominated for the Mayor's Administrator of the Year, and it was Ivan Welsh who did the honours.
I'll keep talking for a while so that Terry Harrigan doesn't know who's going to get this. Terry.
For the Lake Macquarie Sports Person of the Year, Lisa Bingham for surf lifesaving, Albie Bergen, a Round Australia yacht race winner, cyclist Craig Chapman, sailor Scott Ellis, golfer Darren Griffin and sailboarder Adam Quinn were the nominees, and the Federal Minister for Industrial Relations, Peter Morris, made the announcement.
The Sportsperson of the Year Award, 1989, Albie Bergen.
Bit more pressure.
From the road, 31 Scott Street looks a quite respectable, if plain, building. Step inside, however, and that assessment quickly changes. The most visible sign of decay is the cement rendering dropping from the walls in corridors and rooms. But there are other indications that this is a building in need of maintenance. 18 people live here in units. According to some of them, the Department of Housing is turning a deaf ear to requests to rectify the problems.
For the past 3.5 years, tenancy managers have been coming in and out. Tell them they're going to do something about, say, the walls outside, but nothing's been done.
Mark Budworth is on a medical pension and has lived in Earls Court for 4 years. For him, the neglect isn't just an eyesore, he's in danger of being electrocuted by water running from an upstairs kitchen.
You just jump out of the way, you can't turn the light on, so you get electric shock.
The tenants also complain of plumbing, which they say often smells so bad they refrain from using the water. The units are old and suffering the obvious effects of damp. Late-night prowlers also repeatedly contribute to the damage, all of which makes the job of maintaining the building very difficult. Is it in an acceptable state?
At the moment it is not, because we've got some plaster falling off and so forth, but it was in an acceptable state when it was completed.
According to Regional Manager Warren Kelly, Earls Court is an exception to the generally good standard of public housing. Mr Kelly says the residents haven't been ignored, although the re-rendering has been deferred until other major work is also due. He's adamant, however, that the tenants haven't communicated their concerns. The first, he says, he heard of the leaking light was on Newsnight last Thursday, and that, he says, is being investigated. Would you live in Earls Court?
If I was 32 years of age, male, unemployed, with nowhere to live, probably yes. Without any, with the rent that they pay, I'd be quite happy to be there.
Around 350 teachers took part in a rally in Newcastle, while other strike meetings were held throughout the Hunter. The teachers stopped work despite recommendations to abandon the action from New South Wales Industrial Commission President Justice Fisher. Last night, principals in the Maitland Diocese met to unanimously support the union's claim, the phasing in of ACTU national benchmark rates of pay, plus better career path opportunities.
There was a motion carried today, almost unanimously, that there will be a further 24-hour stoppage if negotiations do not proceed satisfactorily. However, the meeting also agreed to defer such action to allow the negotiations to take place in a more conciliatory environment.
The ITA has been at loggerheads since August with private school employers, the biggest being the Catholic Education Office.
Since then, employers have moved away from that, have totally reneged on that agreement, and instead have offered a package which is totally unacceptable to teachers in non-government schools.
Tomorrow there will be a meeting of HSC markers in Newcastle, who are also negotiating a similar award. Independent teachers will stop for a half-day in Wollongong tomorrow and in Sydney on Thursday. The union will report back to the Industrial Commission on Friday.